an understatement. 40 years in the life of a nation and a young nation which is less than 75 years or is 75 years old is one way of looking at it. But I think the work you've done and your scorecard reflects that, is that you have picked up issues of women's empowerment, entrepreneurship, and as the pledge that you have taken says, advocate for promoting equal opportunities, championing gender equality, access to resources, empowering women at all levels, fostering a culture of respect and inclusion, and work towards creating a just and stronger, greater nation. I was listening to all the presentations that were made by Aarti ji, Shinjari ji, Ruchira ji, again Ruchira ji, our young friend Ayush, Anushri ji, and the thought that struck me, something that I've been reflecting on since my colleague Deepa said that I should attend this event. I also said that I think as gender balance goes, I will perhaps be in a very small minority in a group of powerful entrepreneurial women, both entrepreneurs themselves, and I think some of you are also, because your husbands or fathers, I just met one of my friend's daughters, and I said, well, you know, your father is a good friend of mine. But look, the work that you have done, how does that fit into what is being done in the country overall? And I want to say a few things on that. So having expressed my appreciation and placed my appreciation on record, let me say a few things about where I have seen this agenda go in the last 40 years and where is it today. I am not sure that 40 years ago, the issues that you are addressing today were accepted at the national level with the degree of seriousness that was warranted. I think those of you who spoke up within India, those of you who were dealing with these issues in the international space, when you talk about the global movement in the production of this narrative, some famous names come to mind. Those who stood up for equality, empowerment, etc. I think even at the risk of being challenged, I think no matter what effort we make, there is still a very strong, and if I may submit, a toxic sense of patriarchy that still prevails. And the countering of that, and to ensure that it is moving in the direction it was always intended, has required an effort. Let me share with you some of the statistics that I gathered before coming here. And I'll come to statistics in terms of the ministries I deal with. I think what has happened on the health and wellness sector, for the first time in India, the sex ratio today is 1,020 women per 1,000 men, for the first time. This is greater than the 991 women per 1,000 men as per the NFHS 4. I'm talking about the NFHS 5. So that sex ratio is changing for the better. And I think it's very, very encouraging. I think the Poshan Abhiyan has been crucial in improving the infant mortality rate as well as the nutrition and health status of young children and mothers. As a result of this, the infant mortality rate has declined from 38 per 1,000 live births in 2014. And forgive me, whenever I look at statistics, I come to 2014 and for 24, that's our 10 years, and the previous period. It has declined from 38 per 1,000 live births in 2014 to 28 per 1,000 live births in 2021. That's very appreciable, 38 down to 28. More than 3.32 crore women provided cash transfers under PM Matru Vandana Yojana, maternity benefits. The maternal mortality rate has declined from 97 in 2018-20 from 130 in 2014-16. So already in 4 years it's come down from 130 to 97. Anyone familiar with these statistics, especially those of us who served in Geneva and looked at the WHO statistics, this is very impressive. 3.94 crore free antenatal checkups under PM Surakshit Matriva Abhiyan. Paid maternity leave has increased from 12 weeks to 26 weeks during the Modi government. I could go on with other issues at the grassroots level, but the basic submission I make to you is, those of us sitting around this impressive new conference facility in Bharat Mandapam have had the privilege of education, resources, and a system which is willing, either through the efforts of organizations like FLO or other efforts being done by well-meaning individuals or activities being carried out by non-governmental organizations and others, to work in that direction. But I think somewhere along the line, I think I should also share with you the efforts which have been made as a result of the ecosystem which has been created by the government. If you have to fight patriarchy, there are several things that have to be done. But I think the most important thing is that if you acknowledge this upfront in the work that the government does, I think you've already made a beginning. Let me tell you why. We have, under the Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry, and I want to share this with you because some of you may not be aware of the background. When the Prime Minister announced from the ramparts of the Red Fort on 15th August 2014 that it was his dream that India should be open defecation free by the time we celebrate the 150th birth anniversary of the Mahatma Gandhi, which was 2nd October 2019, India should be open defecation free. A lot of my friends, many of them are ashamed of what they said to me then. They said, ये कोई बात है लाल किले से नए प्रधानमंत्री को देश को संबोधित करते समय. I was as dumbstruck then as I am by some of the statements I hear today. So, but an era which was used to talking about the big things without dealing with the small things, I think overlooked the fact. Let me say why I think this is important. We built 11.72 crore toilets under the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, rural and urban. 11.72 crore toilets. When you build a toilet, what do you do? And my starting point here is, you do something very basic for the dignity of the girl child. And I think that's where it starts. Because absent those toilets, you subject your sisters, mothers, daughters to go out to defecate in the open, which means several other consequential problems. Now, the success of that scheme comes not from the physical targets being met. The physical targets, as I said, were a total of 11.72 crore toilets in the rural and urban space, 63.12 lakh what we call IHH, individual household toilets, and 6.36 lakh community public toilet seats in urban areas. Those physical targets are a small part of the issue. It comes from something more. When you convert a scheme of the government into a scheme of the people, and in the process you produce what is called a Jan Andolan, because there you are bringing in behavioral change. And that is, I think, what has succeeded. And it has not succeeded just because of the government. Don't get me wrong, some of you are recording this. The government can provide an enabling ecosystem. The government can provide other decisions. But ultimately, it is civil society and our society at large which embraces those changes and convert it into a people's. And it is organizations like FLO and all other civil society, business groups, etc., which came forward and provided that thrust to make it a movement of the people. Today, when this toilet business started, a lot of people were wanting space, because land is something sacred and something greedy about it. Whenever anything comes to land, there's something. So if people got toilets, community toilets, somebody would take it over and make a tailor's shop in there. Movies have been made on that. But slowly that consciousness swept past society, went into the subconscious of the people. And don't stop at toilets. We have a scheme called the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. And the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, according to that, 3 crore individual houses or tenements have been sanctioned in the rural and the urban areas. I'll come to the urban part because that's something my ministry is associated with. 1 crore 19 lakh units have been sanctioned under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. And in this, I looked at the figures before coming here today. There is a stipulation that the title of the home under each of those 4 verticals has to be in the name of the lady of the house. Why? Or co-jointly. Because it stands to reason that if there is ever any domestic discord, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, in a traditional society which is patriarchal or dominated by patriarchy, you will have the mother or the sister or the daughter shortchanged. And believe me, it has made an immediate difference. It has brought about a change. And that change can be measured. I don't want to go into too much of statistical detail, but I was talking about the building of toilets. And I don't want to cite our study, I'll cite you a World Bank study in July 2018. It estimated that the Swachh Bharat Mission, Grameen, which is the rural part, will result in averting more than 300,000 deaths due to diarrhea and protein energy malnutrition in the mission period. It also said that more than 14 million disability-adjusted life years would be avoided between 2014 and October 2019. This is a July 18 study. And I was looking for an update, and the update I saw was so heavy on the achievements that I said, I'm going to cross-check it. Now, every time you take a step like this, you create. One of your presentations talked about employment agents, opportunities. I'm not going into the employment part. I'm going into the society and what it does for empowerment. Somebody once quipped to me, one of my lady colleagues in the cabinet, you guys go on and on about empowerment. We women don't need empowerment. We are empowered already. I said, sister, you are. This is a particularly, strong-willed colleague of mine. I said, but you're not realizing your empowerment is only one aspect of the visibility aspect. You've got to create an ecosystem which goes down to every level so that you don't need to talk about empowerment, and it comes in the natural flow of things. Sorry, flow, that was a play on. Now, where is this taking us? I could talk about 1.87 crore water tap connections, 1.47 lakh sewer connection under Amrut. That's a scheme, we do that. If the lady of the house, our mothers and daughters and sisters don't have to go out fetching water miles out, they can spend their time doing more productive things. Street lights replaced with LED to ensure safety of women under Amrut. The Smart City mission, which is providing security, safety, accessibility for women through enhanced technology integration in service delivery. I'm going to fast forward. I come to one of the schemes which maybe in an audience like this, which with God's grace and the hard work and efforts of yourselves, your families, you've reached a stage where this is not even a reference or a talking point. Cooking gas cylinders started in India sometime in the 1950s. I think the availability of cooking gas cylinders, even by the time I got to the university in the late 60s, was still very uncommon. People were still using stoves and kerosene, etc. And then the gas cylinder came along. I want to fast forward. What was the availability of cooking gas in 2014? I think only about, let me get my statistics right, total number of cylinders available into the entire country was only 14 crores. Now you please see what the population of India in 2014 was. And if you take that as a percentage. So I'm amused. I'm sorry, I'm in an evening of just pure statistics. I can't let go an opportunity to have some fun about my political friends in the other parties. हमारे समय में गैस का सिलेंडर इतने का बिकता था. I said, यार तो सोच तो लो, तुम्हारे समय में तो गैस का सिलेंडर मिलता ही नहीं था. 14 करोड़ टोटल सिलेंडर्स थे. उसको बढ़ा के we have brought it to about 32 crore cylinders. We introduced a scheme in 2016 which is called Ujjwala. And the beauty of this is that out of the Ujjwala 10 crores 28 lakh cylinders which have been sanctioned, which means what? That if you belong to an economically weaker section household or a lower income group, then according to a fixed criteria, the oil companies will come and give you a free cooktop and they will provide you a free cylinder. During the pandemic, families which qualified for that were given 3 free cylinders. Now, as the government brings the price of LPG down, it is now down to, I think, what, 900 rupees? 800. No, 1100 to 900, then it came to 800. On top of that, we are giving a subsidy to the economically weaker sections, which makes a cylinder available to those Ujjwala households for what, 503 rupees? I have my research assistant sitting behind me, so if he comes this side and nods, I'm on target, 503 rupees. Okay. Now, I just make a submission to you. This is not about the corporate world. This is not about our fact that we grew 8.6% in the last quarter, or that we are the 5th largest economy, and we are on the way to becoming the 3rd largest economy. This is about something else. This is about ensuring that the benefits of development, vikas, actually percolate down in terms of goods and services to those sections of our society which need them the most. That is what the philosophical objective of the Sustainable Development Goals was. To the farthest first. That is what is embodied in our own philosophy of from Sarvodaya to Antyodaya. And I have so much other material that I think we'll have to be here much longer and you'll be deprived of dinner and poetry. But let me tell you that one fundamental thing which encompasses it all these schemes were part of what I describe and what is popular terminology now, women-centered development. And we are moving now from women-centered development to women-led development. I think the government's decision to reserve 33.3% of our seats in legislative assemblies and the central of parliament will result in a situation which is unparalleled in the world. And let me tell you why. And again, you had to deal with patriarchy here. When this announcement was made, some of my closest friends, who I always thought like me were he's for she or whatever, he for she. He said, partner क्या होगा? मैंने कहा क्या होगा? यार मेरी सीट चली जाएगी. और मैंने कहा मियाँ तुम्हारी सीट नहीं जाएगी. ये additional seats आ रही हैं. That is why after the delimitation, after the next census, which is expected shortly, which was delayed because of the COVID pandemic, after the census, after the delimitation, the size of the parliament of the Lok Sabha will go up from 543 to what, 750 or so. That's why we needed a new parliament building also. And that parliament building will have space for an expansion. The last parliament building was built, I think the work started in around 1916 or so, and it was built by 1927. The next one has been built for at least 100 or 200 years. I want to come back to what this means in terms of the country's development. I have a lot of statistics here which shows that we are doing amazingly well. One of the things I'm very proud of, and I'm saying this because one of our young friends here from Calcutta, I think, was talking about what is being done about skilling. And I think we have 9,18,000 self-help groups under what is called the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, or the NULM, National Urban Livelihood Mission, with nearly 91.5 lakh members, out of which 82.5 lakh members are women in over 4,000 towns and cities. And if you see the kind of work they do, now these are the unsung people. So when I heard a report in that white paper, you made 3 recommendations. I'm sorry I couldn't take it down all. I think we would be very open to the idea of taking the recommendations from that white paper and the work that FLO does and coordinating that with some of our self-help groups. I mean, they could easily benefit from this thing. The resources are being received. The kind of change I see in the last few years, the success of the public sector in economic performance, the fact that they are generating profits and plowing it back into CSR or corporate social responsibility, and the defined parameters of that. When I heard about the care economy, one of you made that presentation on the care economy, I was very impressed because I'm not trying to now score a point. I sent a note to my boss the other day. I said, we talk about a demographic advantage of a young population, where the bulk of our population today is, I think, below 39 years old. Very large percentage. Many are below 25 years old. But you know, if you're planning for a country, you don't plan for the next 5 years. As it is, Viksit Bharat means that we are going to be looking at what India looks like in 2047 or 23 years from now. Surely in the next 25 and next 50 years, your demographic pattern will change. So we did a study, and we wrote a letter to the chief secretaries of state governments and the union territories. Said, please look at what needs to be done in order to set up, I wouldn't call them old age care homes, but for senior citizens. You have people, fortunate people like yourselves, will have the resources, whether your children are here or outside, for proper cares to be provided. But there are others who will have acquired that resilience later, and you have some very fine such institutions running all over the country. But can we as a policy look at that? Can the corporate sector, either under CSR or under their own programs, adopt some of these care sectors. I think your report on the care economy and what you do we could be dovetailed into that. And I think I would like to take advantage of this, not only to have the privilege of interacting with all of you, but also to see what we can do to get your recommendations, to see how we can take some of these projects further. I have a feeling that on all fronts, not just the areas that we are dealing with, but the economy is suddenly gearing up for a transition which is going to be more compressed in terms of time. You know, it took a very long time to go from a $1 trillion economy to a $2 trillion economy. From a $2 trillion economy to a $3 or $4 trillion economy was faster. But if you are getting rates of growth of 8.4% in the last quarter, and let's say all the other action is taking place, you are getting growth in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities and in the semi-urban or rural areas. And I would just make that final recommendation that I know you have, from what I could gather here, 19 chapters. 19 chapters. I'm sure they're all in the main urban centers.
No, some of them are in
tier 2, tier 3 cities, very good. Because I think the mega policies will take care, because there is a lot of economic activity and social, to make sure that the societal net to give that kind of thrust to those who need it the most will be there. But I think a little more thrust in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities is how it is. I'm not saying this as a great invention from my point. When I meet the representatives of multilateral agencies who come here, the last World Bank representative, I had a chat with him. He said, before I came, people who knew India said, Delhi's all fine, you can have an office there, but your real work is in the States. That's correct. When I meet people in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they say the same thing. So I think that successful organizations like yours, I don't know what the percentage of entrepreneurs is and how many of you are there personally or your families are in business. But let me conclude by wishing you an even better 40 next years. And may you grow from strength to strength, and more strength to your elbow for the objectives that you have defined for yourself. And thank you for inviting somebody like me to have this interactive session with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for delivering that thought-provoking keynote address. And as we all know, you're a champion of women's rights, and you're saying that it's extremely important to tap into the full potential of women to lead this country to prosperity. Can you say thank you to the Minister with a resounding applause, please?